defined by the 18th Amendment. Prohibition became the law of the land. But it was the Roaring '20s, and law or no law, some people wanted a drink. Bootleg liquor, from bathtub gin to raw turpentine.
In 1933, fulfilling a campaign promise, President Roosevelt signed the 21st Amendment, repealing the controversial Volstead Act. So ended a 13-year alcohol drought. The protesting cries of the teetotalers were drowned out by booming distilleries. Amid cheers of Skol, Salute, Shlanta, L'chaim, Bottoms Up, Prohibition went out with a bang. But in 1920, it had come in almost on tiptoe, raising but few scattered murmurs of discontent. No one seemed to realize the terrible difficulties involved in enforcing such a law. Illicit stills and rum running suddenly flourished, and a generally decent public, as though suddenly aware it had been deprived of a necessity, began to consort with bootleggers and racketeers in mass defiance of the law. The most caricaturized speakeasy password of the 20s was, "Joe sent me." Soon, Chicago, heart of the bootleg industry, had over 10,000 speakeasies. Protecting 125 million Americans from the evils of liquor were 1,500 ill-paid prohibition agents, constantly tempted by graft. Unlawful stills, the largest source of bootleg supply, were destroyed in city and hinterland, only to rise again. Prohibition had other byproducts, too. Rum running by boat, hijacking of trucks, and the submachine gun gang wars. The source of this energetic activity could be traced to one man. Flashbulbs almost obliterate the figure of Al Capone, who had himself obliterated so many others. This is one of his many trips to Cook County Police Station. The writ of habeas corpus barely dry, he is free again. Irate citizens were plainly fed up with over 500 gang murders and other prohibition results, and the followers of Carrie Nation paraded in protest to growing murmurs for prohibition's repeal. Among the repeal law advocates was New York's LaGuardia. And so the noble experiment of prohibition passed into constitutional history. And the nation had a cool one on the house. Political wets like Al Smith and Herbert Lehman had prevailed, aware that in a democracy, a law so overwhelmingly lacking public approval was simply unenforceable. Prohibition had taken its place among the passing milestones of the century.
Any morning during Prohibition. In coastal waters, there are men at work. Rum runners industriously obeying the law of supply and demand, but breaking all of the others. Prohibition, the 18th Amendment to the Constitution, was the final, and I must say, consummate result of the Spartan idealism that swept the country before the armistice. But that idealism is as dead as the League of Nations, and with it died any chance of Prohibition's success, if there ever was any. Bootleg hooch becomes the dictator in the revolution of manners and morals, and it also becomes a major industry, developing its own techniques of packaging, shipping, and merchandising. Entry into a speakeasy becomes a national ritual. "No, I don't know you," says the bouncer. "Joe sent me," pleads the thirsty citizen. Membership card? Money? Well, that's different. Come right on in and name your poison. Nobody knows how dry I am. Every sip of scotch, every swallow of gin is a violation of the law of the land. But happy scofflaws are sipping and swallowing from coast to coast. And between martinis, one of them sums up the tea-hound's attitude toward the 18th Amendment. Prohibition is an awful flop. We like it. It can't stop what it's meant to stop. We like it. It's left a trail of graft and slime. It's filled our land with vice and crime. It don't prohibit worth a dime. Nevertheless, we're for it. Ships can't bring in the stuff fast enough to quench the great American thirst. Alky cooking and hideaway booze factories turns out raw whiskey on a mass production basis. But the customer is always told it's just off the boat. Between hooch and beer, the profits of bootlegging run into real dollars, tens of millions. Like any other business, it's thoroughly and efficiently organized, but with some additional complications. Business rivals are out to kill you, and the occupational hazard is hijacking. Gun barrels and beer barrels are a highly compatible combination, and so profitable that the boys can't resist moving into other lines of work. Now all you have to do is pay tribute to the gang. And if you don't, all the gangsters have to do is wreck your business. A simple, reasonable arrangement, unless you become too... In that case, a representative from Consolidated Rackets Incorporated pays a routine business call. Gang warfare. The gangsters turn against themselves. They slaughter each other. Murder becomes synonymous with Chicago, that toddling town. It's the day of Little Caesar, the underworld big shot, Jack Legs Diamond and Diane O'Banion, Johnny Torrio and Machine Gun Kelly. Sure, there's an arrest now and then, for appearance's sake, but the legal department of Rackets Unlimited specializes in what is technically known as putting in the fix and beating the rap. And all real gangsters do just that. Public enemy number one, they don't come any bigger than Alphonse Capone. From the nothingness of a small-time bouncer, Scarface Al has risen to control a crime and vice syndicate that grosses $100 million a year, deploys an army of 700 thugs and gunmen, and corrupts, dominates the city of Chicago. Render unto Caesar, everyone does. But never fear. Mayor Big Bill Thompson is equal to the situation.
Fabulous farce. World War I is over, and so are America's days of legal alcoholic drink. Convinced that self-sacrifice and sobriety will bring prosperity and peace as it won victory in war, Americans praise passing of the dry law, and then promptly proceed by every possible means to repeal 18th Amendment. Here's Shy Andrew J. Volstead, father of act that became federal law January 16, 1920. And then enforcement begins. In Boston, as in every other city, government agents fight hopelessly against illegal liquor. These homemade stills are but a few of thousands seized and destroyed. Other thousands produce millions of gallons, and countless hundreds prosper in business of bootlegging. In Florida swamps, federal agents search for stills reported working in isolation of Everglades. Government men get $40 to $50 a week for this. It's work well done. Here, as in all 48 states, still and product are discovered and destroyed. Mash meant for market as bootleg booze is poured into the mud. It's similar story in New Orleans, where agents get rid of loot of recent raid. Firewater sure flows freely here. And gang lords move freely here. Al Capone enters Chicago court at height of his career and leaves still king of bootleggers. His reign of terror still to take its toll of dead in an underworld at war. Others, like Texas Guinan, rank high among Prohibition's royalty. To famed speakeasies of times, men bring their wives. It's against the law to drink, so drinking is suddenly smart. There's bootleg liquor on every American lip, shiny flask on every hip. By the middle 1920s, nightlife is having its heyday, for America's dry and high. In New York, customs officials fight flow of scotches and ryes.
In 1932, beer and liquor were still illegal, but repeal was around the corner, despite the vehement protest of the Reverend Billy Sunday.
I have lived long enough to see the white-winged dove of Prohibition build her nest upon the dome of the Capitol at Washington and spread her bright pinions of peace and prosperity over our land from sea to sea and from the Gulf to the Great Lakes. And in the providence of God, I'm going to live long enough to see America so dry, you'll have to prime a man before he can spit. And I'll fight the saloon from Hawaii to Hoboken. And I'll kick it as long as I've got a foot. And I'll fight it, punch it as long as I have a fist. I'll butt it as long as I have a head. I'll bite it as long as I have a tooth. And when I am old and fistless and footless and toothless, I'll gum it till I go home to glory and it goes home to perdition.
Prohibition passes out. At 35.5 minutes past 3 on December 5th, 1933, Utah becomes the 36th state to ratify the 21st Amendment, repealing the 18th. Beer is back, not just 3.2, but real beer. 8 states remain dry, but in the other 40, what's yours? Anything goes.
And Bert Acosta, you knew that the air age must really be coming.
At this point, the people voted for something hopefully called Prohibition. And when the saloons and bars closed up early in 1920, it caused a great deal of downright grief. The trouble had started a good many years earlier, when a firm old lady named Carrie Nation had raided the saloons with a hatchet. She won, and when the Prohibition Amendment became the law of the land, enough good hard liquor went down the drain to make you feel like crying. It looked like the end, the absolute end of liquor in the United States.
By that time, the soldiers had come back to joyful welcomes, even though most of us were trying to forget the war.